Bill Vandycastle is excused. We have Terry is here. Sandy Pop, I don't see her yet. Aaron is here and Steve is here, so, can I, motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion.
Second that.
Motion by Steve, second by Aaron to, approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, motion carried. Under regular business. So, consideration with possible action on committing an additional 0.18 million of restricted Mason Manor funds as an additional source for the RAD conversion of Mason Manor and scattered sites. So, do you want to, I mean, I can give you like a little kind of synopsis of what we're looking at. Ted Mackham is here. We also have attorney Dombrowski and Caitlin Canine. Hey, how was that?
Really good.
If we have questions, but I think what we're looking at doing here as the GVHA is our investors asking us to hold a pool of our unrestricted dollars for, it's a period of 15 years, right? Which gives them a lot. Can you?
Thanks much, guys.
There you go. Which would give the investor a level of confidence that we can maintain Mason Manor and we can keep the doors open and keep things running just in case something were to happen in the future, right?
Yep.
That, and I believe that is the general synopsis of that. I looked at where we are in our operating budget, and I just emailed that out to you guys in like micro print, so I apologize for that, but
Like an hour ago or something.
yeah, I wanted maybe even less. So I wanted to make sure that if we were, well, let me back up. Looking at what we have for funding, right? The housing authority is putting in $500,000 of our own money, and that's going to be spent for the construction of the building. And then the request is to hold another 1.18 million in restricted dollars for Mason Manor, hold that in a pool for 15 years. So taking that aside, we will continue to have 1.3 million of unrestricted dollars in the account that we can draw from if we need to. So that was one thing I wanted to see what we would have balance in our account. And then the other question that I had was, where are we going to be with our budgets when this is done?
It's pretty reasonable.
So, right, because I want to make sure we don't have to use this $1 million. So, if you look at our pro forma, I'm looking at year 3, which is the first year we have to start making a payment, our debt payment of $376,000. And when you look at, once we've paid out our expenses, which we have listed in here, we've got the rent coming in, then we have expenses, that gives us $542,000 to look at. If we take out that loan payment of $376,197, and then we also have to pay a $10,000 asset management fee. Once we take those numbers, we back them out, that gives us a balance at the end of the day of $155,000. Push money that we can spend or not spend. But so we're in the black, I guess, when we're running the shop, which was my concern, to make sure that things are going to cash flow and that we're okay with our existing staff level and kind of what we're doing. Okay,
Yeah.
so you look like you have a question.
Well, was a late hit on a big number, right? And you're saying we've got it with like 150 grand left over? Is that what I just heard?
No, so you mean the 1.1, hold the 1.18.
Yeah.
So we're holding that money.
Yeah.
We'll still have 1.3 million in another account.
Okay.
That's not
Okay,
right, that we've got to
okay.
draw from if we need to.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, we're in the black at 155,000. So
Per year, right?
per month, yeah, per year.
Yeah.
So we're doing okay based on everything that's happening, right?
And this is a rainy day fund. It's still our 1.2 million after 15 years.
Yes, it's still our money at the end of.
Correct. Correct. So if
And- wait,
Cheryl,
get
can
a
I
motion?
just,
Or, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Steve,
I'll
motion
second
open the
that.
floor, Aaron second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Go ahead, Ted.
yeah, Cheryl, great synopsis. Let me put a little different tacked on it. So right now, the deal as it is structured has 6 months operating deficit reserve. It's called operating deficit reserve of, I'm just going to round it to $800,000. Okay. It's 800 and some change. And that is a very typical sizing for 6 months of debt service and operating expenses, that you would say, hey, it's $800,000. That's our operating deficit reserve. And that's a pretty standard sizing of that reserve. Now, Enterprise, our investor, who I don't think is being overly unreasonable, but they're not being soft on us either. They're saying, just based on what, they're a 99.99% owner of this for 15 years. So they just want to make sure things are viable. So what we thought was the 1.18 that are restricted funds that are for Mason Manor, kind of no skin off our back, if we could dedicate those to the project. Now, what we're really doing is taking the 1.18 and the 800 and combining them to a $2 million operating reserve. But technically, we can't take the 1.18 and throw it right into an operating reserve. We have to use it as a source in the deal. And then other funds will, make that up to the add the 1.18 to the operating reserve. But, that's all kind of technical on how we use the restricted funds. But in the bottom line, the operating reserve, which is great for everybody, really, is $2 million. And like Steve says, and Cheryl said, you get it back. Okay. So, it's not a horrible thing. It's just something that you have to restrict your cash to this deal in the operating reserve. And I thought it was no skin off our back because it's already restricted funds for Mason Manor. So, okay, let's do that. Appease Enterprise. And then the other part of this, which is kind of more of a detail than an action item, but I think the 1.18 is an action item, like Cheryl said in the agenda. I thought it was a perfect way to state it in the agenda. But there has to be, what Enterprise is saying is, for viability of the GBHA entity as manager, they want to make sure that you guys have $1 million of liquidity. Okay. So how do we do that? And the reason is, if we all get hit by a bus or what happens, in 2 years, how can we make sure that $1 million is going to be there at stabilization? Not so much so that the housing authority and Gorman are satisfied, but really Enterprise, they're keeping in this LOI. I've been negotiating this ever since we talked before. They're kind of keeping in their LOI, their letter of intent, that they get to determine if you've met the $1 million and the $3 million net worth. And I keep saying to them, no. If you guys at stabilization, if we have $1 million that we can say in the bank, and let's just talk about how we do that. Do we put that in an account or something and not touch it until stabilization, which will be about 2 years, or let's just talk about how we do that. But I would like to say to Enterprise, at stabilization, it's a flip of the switch. If the $1 million is in the account, there's no determination by Enterprise of anything. If there's $1 million in the account, the net worth is already there because you guys own the project. So I don't think anybody's debating that. It's the $1 million liquidity has to be in an account upon stabilization. It's just a flip of the switch. We're out, you're in, it's over. That's the way we need to have this work, instead of Enterprise making a discretionary decision of whether or not you've made the $1 million liquidity, covenant. I put that on the floor because I'm just kind of working through this with Enterprise on what your thoughts are. but I think that's the way we do it. Let me just give you another idea real quick before you start talking. The $1 million in liquidity, what I would say is we've got the $2 million in the operating reserve. Maybe we put another $1 million. We have $3 million in the operating reserve. When we hit stabilization, the $1 million gets paid by enterprise to you guys, and you got the $1 million and nobody can say anything. You know, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm going. It's a little bit detailed, but it is your money, and I'm kind of negotiating your money. So I wanted to have this discussion. Sorry, I thought it was gonna be face to face, but of course I'm here. But you know,
Yeah.
kind of discuss how we could achieve that.
Dragged us into the weeds here, Ted. But we have to have this, you need to have this decided on. Right?
Yes,
This needs
yes,
to be Submitted. So
yes,
I'm thinking that kind of the best case scenario for us is they don't need anything. Worst case scenario for us would be they make us hold this 1.18 in a pool, in an escrow, whatever it is, for 15 years that we can't touch, right?
they've only said 5 years. They've only said 5 years now, so we're good with that.
Now we're down to
Sure.
5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
It was we heard 15.
It was going to be 15. We've negotiated down to 5, so I wanted to correct you on
Down
that.
to 5. Okay, so that I guess that makes me feel a lot better. I mean, 15
Right,
not make me happy, but I figured worst case, if we needed to hold it, we'd have that $1 million after 15 years to pay to go towards the purchase, right? We're gonna need to come up with like 3 or 4 million at that time, right? At the end of that years
to purchase.
or the buyback.
No. You will, at the end of 15 years, it'll be a very nominal amount that they'll just get out. You won't have to pay them back. You'll get all those reserve monies available to you, and you'll be flushed with cash at year 15 on this deal.
It's never paid back.
Let's just zoom out a little bit here.
Yeah.
Do we have enough data to make a decision about this today?
We have to decide because this plan needs to be submitted by, when is that?
Friday.
Caitlin
Right.
needs,
Right.
So our 99.999% owner knows our timeline, put us over a barrel on holding aside $1.2 million.
Right.
So can I just interject for 1 second? So, our transaction manager for financing plan submission wants to confirm that the tax credits and the equity are committed. So they're really looking at this enterprise letter to make sure that we are getting the amount of equity that we say we're getting. She doesn't care about all the other details in that letter.
Right.
We don't care about that. So we just need a letter to submit that verifies the LIHTC amount, and we can still negotiate some of these things.
Right. That's true.
So my point, the 1.18 million are restricted funds, so they can only ever be spent for Mason Manor. This is, that came from HUD, so this is the best way to get that money out of that restriction and into the deal that comes back as unrestricted on the, because when we get that 1.18 million out of the reserve later, that's all unrestricted cash.
Right.
This is, in my opinion, the best way to unrestrict that money and use it for the intended purpose per HUD guidelines, and yet have it benefit us in the long run.
Yes.
look at all the numbers. I was comfortable in holding that 1.18 for 15 years based on the fact we've got another $1 million in the bank. Right? And that's money that we don't really lose it. We're just hanging on it. We can't spend it. So it's not like
You
it's,
still have a good cushion.
the cushion is still there. So as much as I didn't like the 15 years,
Yeah.
I felt like we could do that as an organization. Hearing that it's 5 makes me feel a lot better, because then it's just 5 years that we're kind of not spending the money that we have restricted, and actually it does lose its connection to Mason Manor by doing this 5-year deal. It comes back unrestricted.
Yeah, I think Stephanie said it very well, is that you get this restricted funds into the deal and that comes out unrestricted. It's actually a great cycle of cash for that 1.18. And as Caitlin indicated, we have to negotiate, which we don't have to do now. I just wanted to put it in your mind. We don't have to really decide about the $1 million liquidity situation right now. It will, we will come back to it and we'll have to have a final decision on it, but it is, we just have to figure out a way to do that, of how to ensure everybody that you guys will have $1 million liquidity at stabilization. But I think it's a great way to use the 1.18, because like Stephanie says, it'll go into the project as a source. You will use it and then it'll come out as unrestricted.
Right, so right now it's a restricted fund for Mason Manor
Correct.
anyway.
Correct.
It would be a restricted fund for however.
We could lose it if, when Mason Manor ends, we're no longer public housing. We could lose it if we don't spend it.
We're no
Oh,
longer
yeah.
public housing at the end of. I mean, lose it how? We no longer exist.
Well, no, right, that's how it would-
I mean, right.
Come back
I'll
and
take
say,
it, yeah.
where's our 1
Asterisk.
million?
There's no longer public housing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was not aware of that, but that makes it even better. In
There's-
case we
because it
might
was a
lose it,
scattered
but-
site.
okay.
So what needs to be voted on today then is the commitment of the 1.18.
Correct.
Project to be held not really as a hard cost like the 500, what we originally did, which is actually going into the construction, right? However you're gonna use it, the 500,000 is going in. The 1.18, we hold it in-house for a period of time. And then it's just, we can spend it. We can't spend it within the 5 years. That's the whole point of this, right? We can't touch it. After 5,
You can touch it with the express written approval of enterprise, but then you have to replenish it. So no, you can't touch it.
so it's really a commitment to our investor.
Yeah.
That for 5 years. Okay,
5 years.
5 years,
Not 15.
not
Yeah,
15.
1.18.
Yep.
From essentially one restricted file to another.
Yes.
It's really nice of them to hit us up pretty late on here when we have like zero choice in the matter. right?
Yeah, that's usually what happens in these things, let me tell you.
I see that Bill hopped on.
Yes. Hi, Bill.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning.
Lost Terry, but we got Bill, so that works for quorum.
Bill, does this all make sense to you?
Yes,
Well, and we also
Yeah.
have Attorney Dombrowski, and,
Yeah.
our consultant and our attorney they've been reviewing all this with Ted as well.
Okay.
Which gives me a comfort level that this is not out of, I guess, the ordinary for these development deals to happen.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll motion that.
Aaron's getting after it. All right, yeah,
It just means.
okay.
So we have a motion to approve committing the 1.18 million of restricted funds
I
for
think we
5
have to
years.
close the- before we
Oh,
do that.
yeah, sorry. I need a motion to close the floor.
I'll motion that.
Aaron motions to close the floor, second by Steve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you guys for your patience and your,
Um,
Yeah.
Running the meeting for Terry, so.
thank you for your patience, everybody.
There's a motion on the floor by Aaron to approve the 1.18 million of restricted Mason Manor funds to go towards this project for a period of 5 years.
I will second that.
There's a second by Bill. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Great, so is this Ted? I suppose we closed the floor already, but I'm assuming we won't need to meet again for a while.
Correct. Now what goes in is, Cheryl has been authorized by board resolutions to sign commitment letters for the sources we just discussed.
Yep.
And we will prepare those and have her sign those, on behalf of GBHA. And then Caitlin is putting together this entire package called the financing plan that will be submitted to Mary, who is our transaction manager. And then, they just start putting it through the bureaucratic process of HUD review. And I know Caitlin, you can talk about that probably even better than I can in terms of timing and what happens after that.
Yes, so once we submit, it's about 45 to 60 days for our transaction manager to review all the documentation. And they'll probably, every transaction manager is different. So some will either send questions piecemeal, or some will like put a Word document together with any questions or additional documents they need and actually have a call. So it really, I'm not sure, I haven't worked with Mary before, but I think she's really eager to get started because she's actually reached out to me twice asking where our financing plan is, which is great. So I think once we get everything in, she's going to start reviewing it right away. So it's possible that this process could go a little quicker.
Great. So we're moving forward. Finally, and hopefully we'll be in the ground, I'm thinking by the end of the year.
Yep.
Starting by the end of the year, so. Great, I don't think there's anything else.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Steve's got a motion to adjourn,
I'll second it.
seconded by Aaron. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Great, thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Bye.
Take care.